It's amazing. How is it there's nobody out there writing an interesting blog on corrupt rogue judges? All these lawyers, they have blogs on everything under God's green earth, but they don't have blogs on, let's listen to the dumbest decision made today. I was like, I would do a dumb decision of the day blog that just takes apart the corruption, the fraud, and the incompetency in our judicial system.
I can tell you why. Well, one reason, because if a lawyer who writes that blog has to appear in front of that judge, they know what's going to happen. Judges never do that, but they know what's going to happen. And that's just the reality they have to deal with, is like, oh, sorry. So you have to eventually do it as a quote unquote retired lawyer. And then the next thing that happens is that judge signs a bogus search warrant someday. And when that happens, what do? Suddenly you have to fight. Suddenly you have to do something. Suddenly your life gets under the microscope because you said something about a judge and the judge didn't like it. And there's no way around that. If you have to appear in front of a judge, there's actually, and in some states they have ethics boards, not rules, but they have boards who will extend those criticisms of judges into questionable ethics. It's like, wait a minute. Don't lawyers get to have an opinion about the judge's ruling? Don't they get to say it was legally wrong? Don't they get to do that? And the answer should always be yes. But these are egos with robes walking around. And at the end of the day, if you badmouth one specifically, they will be mad. If you badmouth them generally, they'll always know you're talking about every other judge. But right. But when you're talking about is like, well, why in their blog talking about corrupt judges? Because you'd have to write specifically about the corruption. You'd lay it out in front of them. There'd be no way for them to counter it, because if they start commenting publicly, they risk their own ethical endeavors, I'll say. And they just want to wait for you to be in front of them again. Instead, they're not going to ever counter your public argument. Oh, I don't stoop myself to that level, but yeah, sorry. There's no, you don't get that continuance, not even for a day. Sorry. You have to trial prep in a day rather than 2 weeks. And it's like, well, we have good cause. Like, there's new counsel. We need a little time to whatever. No, sorry. You're just not going to do that. Or they, they just deny motion hearings, or they just overrule objections. It's like, okay, well, you can take my overruled objection up on appeal. You're not going to win that appeal based on a judge wanting to hear more evidence. I mean, you might, but you're talking about a crapshoot for your client and infinite money. Again, in tens of thousands of dollars of someone else's money that has to come in, or you're doing it on your own and not earning that income. And so judges they have the ability to make your life exceedingly difficult and expensive without ever violating a law or an ethical principle or having any trail that they've done it. You'd never know. You'd never know if they did it. They just say, nah, overruled. And you're like, but judge, they can't do this. This is hearsay. It's like, yeah, it's probative. Like, and what do? You go to the appeals court and say, well, they let in this piece of hearsay. It's like, well, prove that was the thing that convicted your client or that caused you to lose. And there's no way you can do that.